bit about agribusiness?
Sure.
I mean, you mentioned global economy. Now that really
Well, I think that what part of our opportunities on a go-forward basis is that Salinas Valley, Monterey County is uniquely blessed with terrific weather, an extended growing season, a fertile valley, a lot of the necessary infrastructure in terms of logistics, cooling, our geography works our way. And so one of the things that has yielded us, or that has allowed over the years, is it's created the opportunity to essentially have industry consolidation that occurred be headquartered here, in the sense that this is really the nerve center of the fresh produce industry. Occasionally I used to joke, I often would hear the mayor of Yuma, whoever that may be, I assume they just pass along from mayor to mayor, they'd say they're the mayor of the lettuce capital of the world, and my reaction to that was always, no, you're not. Your season's half as long and we own your crops. And my point is, production can be mobile, but going to market around fresh, if you look at that Monterey County crop report, whether it's lettuce, romaine, spring mix, the value-added spinach, et cetera, and a lot of strawberries, though there are obviously other areas like Florida, that go-to-market, the financing of the crops, the new product development, new products, that essentially flows from the Salinas Valley. But that said, and this is to my earlier comment, the regulatory environment, the cost issues, the labor challenges as we sit here today don't necessarily mean that production will stay at the same levels here. The ag industry is pretty pragmatic. They're going to do what they need to do to get to market. And though I've really, certainly as my time as mayor, and then just having the opportunity to know a lot of folks, whether growing up with them or just doing business with them as a supplier or competitor, they're really committed to the well-being of Salinas and the community. So that's a good thing. But they're also business people, and and one of the things I know is the mayor, just in very broad strokes, is the era we're in. California has some challenges in terms of the site selectors that come visit. There were a few that went through while I was still the mayor. They'd say, we're not getting marching orders to be in California necessary because of taxes or regulation. The one thing money can do is it can vote with its feet. We might not like the vote, but so where we have to win is because we're kind of perceived as a high cost, cumbersome area to do business. So we have to win in the high value space. So the ag industry, much like the Silicon Valley to the north, is, here has always been pretty innovative. We really initiated the value added component of the business in the produce aisle. So we have to relentlessly innovate. We have to be efficient, and we have to stay ahead of the curve. And if we do those things, I think we'll be fine. But it's a challenging environment.
So you still feel that this is the center, this is still a strong...
Well, it is. One of the things I always tell people is, we're not the wheat and grain crowd. That's the Midwest. We're the fresh group. But no, I expect we will remain very, very strong and in that world, but it's a world that has a lot of cost, regulation, and labor challenges. But that said, ag has always had challenges, and so and business does, and life does. So I think we'd be naive if we ever think, we're just going to pass through an extended Shangri-La phase. That's not likely to happen. So, but no, I'm optimistic. Ag will meet its challenges. This will still remain one of the centers of gravity, and or as I like to put it, the fresh epicenter of North America. So.
Well, what do you think the foundation of that is?
Well, it's a combination of certainly soil, climate, length of growing season, infrastructure investment, our actual geography, where we sit in terms of logistics. We still are in the middle of the world's eighth largest economy, and so that, if you look how you go to market, in an era gone by, it was rail, trucking's still big. So, you've got to have proximity where trucks are offloading so they can backhaul and head east. So things still generally line up in our favor. But like I say, we're a peripatetic group. One of the things I tell people is, the ag business, on a daily basis in this valley, we live in a binational economic corridor from the Salinas Valley to the Bajío Valley and to the interior of Mexico. I run a fairly small farming operation, and we're in a couple spots in Mexico and Florida when we leave Salinas during the winter. So, and you see more and more operations south of the border, partially as a weather hedge. That's a little bit more so the desert, because the desert's a little more unpredictable than it used to be. We don't necessarily have, and this isn't necessarily a correlation with Mexico, but we don't have the same ground options we used to in the Central Valley on a transitional basis because of water. So all those things kind of force us to look at our world a little differently, and it's interesting. And climate change. We without getting into the politics of that's certainly something we in agriculture are paying attention to. I mean, I can just tell you categorically, we have more heat events here during the summer season than we used to, or it sure seems that way. But that said, we're still a more moderate place than a lot of other places, so that may create more opportunities over time. I think we'll see. One of the things I always find fascinating about ag is just how adaptable the leaders in the game are. They make things happen and they react pretty well to what they have to. So I think everyone ought to be encouraged by that.
Were there any effects from these heat events, or?
Well, those vary shipper by shipper and crop by crop. Sometimes it's as simple as a couple weeks flow into 1 week, and we've got too much and no market, and on the back end, the market. It can be quality. So the answer is it depends.
And the water?
Well, water is something everybody's keeping an eye on. With a lot of the new regulations, we obviously want water to be as clean as possible. We know there's some concerns about that. On the other hand, I think the expectation that runoff water is going to be as pure as drinking water. I have yet to find anyone to volunteer to sign up or give me a glass of runoff water. But that said, it's a serious conversation. I think as an industry, we're making good progress on that. As a practical matter, we remain really concerned about things like saltwater intrusion, and the issue of water is challenging for this state. It relies a lot on infrastructure and technology, innovation, and I think we're addressing those things. But it's slow going sometimes. Progress often is.
Well, is there anything, before you tell us about your future projects and interests, is there anything that you would like to, I guess I did forget to ask you about what you felt were highlights in your time as mayor?
Well, that's a question that I could probably spend a lot of time on, and it's a little bit like you sometimes come out of an interview or you meet somebody and you go, gee, I wish I had said, or I can replay all 6 years chapter and verse, and I think there are a few people who would appreciate it if I actually did. One of the things I can certainly say is I'm still startled at how fast 6 years went. But if I were to look back on a very top line basis, I'm really proud of the work the councils I had the privilege of serving with did. I think we met the challenges of our times in terms of the things that, when I was working for Fresh Express, Pizza Hut was one of the accounts I'd call on, and one of the things they were talking about internally at that time is, are we working on the right big things? And I think the councils that I was privileged to serve with, we worked on the right big things, and we met those challenges head on. Whether it was the peace issue or the prosperity issue, or can we get the organization in alignment with the priorities of the community, we met those challenges. And the other thing that I'm proud of that statement on behalf of the councils, again, it was really a privilege to serve with. I was telling, I ran into the new mayor and the city manager, and I think we were kind of going back and forth a little bantering, as you might expect might occur. And I said, what was really interesting about the 6 years I served is 4 city managers, 3 police chiefs, and 5 fire chiefs. So it was a time of a lot of transition, a lot of budgetary challenges. Obviously, we had to deal with the economy, and so that's a lot of different folks in the game. Yet we were able to, like I say, meet those challenges and I think stay on task. So those are some of my recollections. The other thing is, and I really realized this full well, and I realized it the day I left office. I mean, I always understood in office, and I was always very clear with people. They'd ask me, how do I like being the mayor? And I didn't pull any punches. I loved being the mayor of Salinas, just what a real distinct honor to formally represent a community. I don't know that you can ever replace that. I mean, it's really just something very, very special. So that's the part I miss the most, that formal opportunity to represent the community. Now, I certainly understood as the mayor that there are other armies in a community, there are other stakeholders in a community, there are other ways to move a city forward. You don't have to hold elected office. It doesn't have to come from City Hall. I fully understand that. But it was really a distinct honor to be the city's mayor. So I miss that.
Well, so following that, what do you plan to do?
Well, I'm still excited and enthused to be involved in the city's major economic initiative, the Steinbeck Innovation Cluster, which flowed from the community's, the city's response to the HSBC Capital One situation. 501c3 has set up. There's a board, and so I'm still involved in that. I have the opportunity to be the initial chair, and that, moving that agenda forward and working with John Hartnett and fellow board members in the community, it's a big lift. So there are times I feel like the same demands on my time, because you have to stay on task. The thing I chose to do, partially I'm enjoying being a new grandfather, more time with my family, and then, as I tell people, I'm getting back to work, trying to make the world safe for radicchio and other specialty items, and I continue to be quite clear there's lots of upside there. So I'm getting back to work. People ask, how did you balance all that? And the answer is I didn't. Salinas is a full-time city, and even though it was technically a part-time job, I'd give everyone a big wink, and not in Salinas. And so I so I mean, balance really wasn't the option, and so I'm getting back to some of the things that it was just appropriate that and require my attention. But to the degree I have some flexibility, I've chosen to try and get involved with arts and cultural related projects because one of the and I have no talent. But I was really I've always had a great affinity for the libraries, and I think, I tell people there are 3 stories how I became the mayor, and one of them's true, and depending upon the audience. But I think it's fair to say my opportunity to work with a lot of people in the community around helping save the libraries and the various and Measure V. That had a lot to do with my ending up being the mayor. So I've always had an affinity for libraries, books, and arts and culture. And the thing I was really impressed by while I was the mayor was, the passion that's around arts and culture. I think the opportunities in terms of quality of life. When I was the mayor, I was always very clear. And the other fun thing about arts and culture is it ties in beautifully to economic development, and then I could tax you, and so no one has to worry about that anymore. But the reality is, and particularly for this community, and to a point you made earlier, we really haven't told our story like we could in terms of the history. We have marvelous culture here and diversity here, and there's really. There's an arts and music scene that people are not really appreciative of, dance scene. So I want to get involved in things like that. So I'm on a couple different boards, the First Mayor's House, the National Steinbeck Center. I'm working with a group on that's still trying to refurbish the hats, and so I'm that's kind of where my focus is, and then I'm back to helping my old high school, Palma, and doing some of those things. So I am trying to practice what I preach, that you don't have to be in elected office to be involved in a community and make a contribution. So that's kind of where my focus has been, and I expect it will be for a while.
Sounds like it. Well, have we missed anything that you would like to?
I'll kick that back to you. I mean, like I said, I loved being the mayor, enjoyed my time in office, and so there's no shortage of things I could talk or reflect on.
I think there's one thing one last thing
Mm-hmm.
I can get on, which is when you informed the world that you were not going to run.
Oh yeah.
Kind of how, because that was a very emotional.
That was.
For the community.
Yeah.
For all, especially for us. So maybe you can talk just a couple minutes on that.
Well, obviously it was a personal decision, and it was a very difficult decision, and I know that based on the reaction, it wasn't an announcement anyone expected when I delivered it. But there were a couple of things when I first ran for office, and I always viewed this as community service, and I wanted to go after it kind of high octane, high energy, and so run hard. And at a time when I first ran, I anticipated 4 to 6 years, 6 years at the most. I mean, and I remember talking to KSBW at the time, and looking back, I say I know I take 2 more pills now as I leave office when I started. So so I think I kept the charge of go at it pretty good. So I never really envisioned it being more than 6 years. I really was interested in going one more time, but just work and family and those things. I just realized that balance wouldn't hold, and then that wouldn't be fair to the city, and that I love and had the honor of serving. So I had to make that decision. It's interesting. A lot of people talk about the mayor's term, 4 years. The council members are 2 years versus 4, and the council members are all 4. And in broad strokes, I frankly think it ought to be 4. But those two, and had I been elected in the middle of it, I would have served my term. But that 2 years gave me a chance to check in too. And so because I had that opportunity and because of the way some things were involving at work, I just said, this isn't going to be fair to anyone. So having realized that, and the nature of ag is you can kind of see something several months and a year and a half out. So it's like, I've got to make some decisions now. So the thing I wanted to do, even though I still, and I took very seriously, I am the mayor until I'm not. I mean, nobody elected me to be the mayor for a year and then campaign for a year, or nobody elected me to be the mayor for 20 months instead of 24 months. You're the mayor until you're not. And so we worked hard on Capital One. We talked about, I remember giving a speech my last 6 months in office. Here are some things I wish I had gotten to and I want to get to. And so I took that very seriously. And with a 2-year term, I frankly think that you owe the community that. But I also felt I owed the community the minute I knew that I needed to make that announcement, because what my hope was, and I think in many respects this is exactly what happened. I think mayors have a tendency to self-select, in the sense that they kind of put that role on. How does it feel? And having not held elective office before I became the mayor, I had a pretty good idea what was involved in terms of how much time you need to get out in the community to establish that relationship, to build support with the community. Salinas is a much bigger city than we sometimes realize now. So a political campaign requires an organization, it requires financial support. So I wanted to give my successor, whoever that may be, the opportunity to do that. And I had a pretty good sense of how long that would actually take. I didn't expect anyone to announce the next day. In fact, had they announced the next day that they were going to run anyway, which would have been fine. That's the nature of the beast. But what I hoped and expected would happen did happen. You could kind of tell the community absorbed it, and then people got to work. And as much as it startles me and pains me, life actually went on, and a new mayor was selected, and I've watched him in action, and he's doing fine, and Salinas is doing fine. And that's as it should be. One of the things I was really, really clear, and now you'll get me emotional, is the office never belonged to me. It was always the community's. You have to understand that. So it was never mine. It was the community's. I was honored to receive it, and eventually it always goes home. In fact, it never leaves home. It's the community's, not mine, and it's not Mayor Gunter's, and he knows that. Mayor Caballero knew that. Mayor Jeffrey, that's it. That chair, and I think I've told you the story. Occasionally, I would sit in that office late at night in the chair, and I realized I could not put me there. I couldn't keep me there. Mayors should always remember that.
Only one last thing I'd like to just tell with regards to this whole situation was the actual moment of your speech. Because it was such it was a great speech, first of all, but you kind of broke down in the middle of it. And there were those of us in the audience breaking down as well.
Well, it's interesting. I'll never forget, because I think if you look back at my time in office, for whatever reason, I had a tendency at times to tear up and get emotional about Salinas, and my son, he was, Dad, how come you don't do that at home? I mean, I see you tear up about I'm the only mayor you ever met who probably can cry about what a tax measure means to a city. Ultimately it ties to core services and making little kids happy. I mean, I see all that, and everyone else is like, what's he so emotional about? And I'll never forget my son saying, Dad, you get emotional when a police chief retires. How about my birthday? So one, I have that tendency, but it's. For whatever reason in my DNA, I love Salinas. So to give that up, it was hard. So that's why I cried.
Well,
That was clear.
I did want to say, just because that one of the things I've always appreciated has been your enthusiasm and your love for Salinas.
Yeah.
And that was a real lift that I felt. And I don't think it ends.
No, you can't turn that off.
And I think it's going to continue
Yeah.
to be in the community.
Well, I hope so. I like being in the community, and I think that, I am told, though I stopped reading them, I'm told there were people on the blogs who criticized me, and I'm told there were those who didn't always agree with me, but I don't think anyone ever questioned my motives were for Salinas. And when that's the case, you have the ability, I think, to work with people. And the interesting thing is, and again, I think I got a lot of this from my dad, but a lot of people look at differences or challenges and they choose or they're put off by it. And I'm always intrigued by that. Can you bring that together, and can you take that mosaic and can you move forward? But my starting point was always Salinas. I'm no different than anyone else. I have an ego and I want to get some stuff done. But I always had that North Star. If anything kind of got caught in the crosshairs in terms of how do you make a decision, bring it back to what's best for Salinas, and that's a pretty good guide to get through any challenge.
Well, that was always clear. That was always clear.
Good. Well, I'm glad. That was the idea.
And I think, in a sense, once you're mayor of Salinas, you're always a mayor of Salinas.
Well, I'm told that's the case. I know when I run into my predecessors, I still say hi, Mayor Stiles, hi, Mayor Jeffries. Anna or Mayor Caballero has gone on to she gets to be called. She's got a few more titles. But I think. I think, and I'll never forget the first time I met Senator Feinstein when I was back in Washington, and once you've been a mayor, you could tell. She said, I loved being a mayor too. It's just such a unique office. It's one of the best jobs in America. So mayors kind of enjoy acknowledging other mayors. So you never really quite lose it. But I recognize I'm not the one pounding the gavel and calling the meeting to order anymore. I'm very, very clear that's not my role.
I believe that's kind of nice, actually.
Yeah, that part's kind of nice. Though I have to admit, when Mayor Gunter did the rodeo greeting, I was like, it was just like, oh. I liked that part. And I saw him in the and it's just interesting, you see people seeking someone out, because they've got a problem and they want to talk to the mayor, and because they're trying, and those are good moments, and because it's an opportunity to hopefully help or serve, and that's pretty special. So I have to admit, I was happy for him and a little envious.
Well, thank you for coming.
Oh, you're welcome. No, it was fun to relive 6 years.